Someone pointed me saying, hey, make sure you do get the errata for this. I felt like everything was pretty understandable, and it is actually. Yes, there were a couple of typos and everything, but there are a couple of things. This may affect some people's decision on the map that need to be corrected. Well, one doesn't. This connection is 31. You're not allowed to move more than 30. It should be 30. You are allowed to move between them. I might have scratched my head about that, but like the thing with the 22 instead of 11, I probably would have come to the right solution. The other one is this disintegration result doesn't exist. There may be something else on counters and map, I don't know. I don't want to print out the errata because my printer is obviously not very happy. You can see it's creating some lines and stuff, even in black and white. Color is really problematic, and it's also down in my wife's room, and it's hard to connect. I can't connect it to my computer without hauling it up, and I can't connect it to hers without mailing stuff to her and turning her computer on and everything. I think everything else was largely explanatory. There were some things about leaders being alone that, you know, I might have to go look up, but other than that, I think we're okay. One way or another, I'm going out later today. It's too pretty not to, but I'm going to finish my coffee up, and I reached out to someone. I hope I get a response there, but if I don't, I just head out. But let's get started. So the first thing to do is we look at the sequence of play, and okay, supply is fine. There's no reinforcements for the first turn of the game. It's not turn 6 or turn 8, so I don't have any special die rolls, or turn 10, 11, or 12, which means I'm going to be moving in combat with the U.S. forces. Okay, I filled out the sheets for the Mexicans here, the remainder of the friction points for them. They have, as you can see, higher friction points, so their regular infantry is at 10 to begin with, and their conscripts go way up to 15. That's going to affect their ability to fight. So the goal of this game means that the U.S. has to gain a 10-point location every turn, or they got problems. And while there are some 10-point locations, Chihuahua, Santa Fe, I'm sorry I have to call it Chihuahua, they are not really available for, I'd have to dispatch a leader to deal with them. Now, I could dispatch Worth to go out and, you know, try to take one of these valuable locations that's far, far from, you know, where the center of gravity of the battles is. But that feels like I'll be stripping the strength that I have facing the Mexicans in general. So in particular, I'm curious about what Errata has with him. So he has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 strength points, whereas Taylor only has 9. Now, right away, you're looking at, that's 2 to 1. And I can't bring these up because you can't attach a leader and move units into a location. So this is the strongest force that I can send against him. I can't send Worth up to go command those troops or whatever. And I probably want Worth with me for combat because, if I recall correctly, that's his combat rating, and you're allowed to use 2 combat ratings. I think I just have to push forward into that location with Taylor and try to take, and what is that? That's Matamoros. Try to take my 10-point space. If I don't take that 10-point space, I take a 5-point morale loss. And remember, if I go down to 0, I lose the game as the US. So that's problematic. So I guess we move. And that move is increasing everything in Taylor's force, and I can put a little control marker because I own this. Everything in Taylor's force by 2 friction points, which isn't a whole hell of a lot. So that'll be the first thing I do. You can immediately see how obnoxious this movement system really is, where you have to keep updating the friction points on units. Luckily, there aren't a lot of stacks in the game, at least yet. And there aren't a lot of spaces. It's a small game overall, so there probably isn't going to be too great a burden. But man, that is not something you want to do in general. Okay. Now we check the disintegration. Well, the force is completed. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I think we use the full points, not whatever points I gained. Obviously, whatever I gained isn't going to hurt me. So the biggest I have is an 8, which is safe. As long as I stay 10 or less, there's no chance my forces are going to fall apart. But obviously, there are movements that just making them is dangerous, right? And that's where you need a good leader, I guess. So I have successfully made it in here without getting hurt. And now it's time for combat. All right, this is painful, right? And we're gonna get the example here. So they give it as a fucking example, right? Yeah. First, determine the class of all attacking and defending. Okay, so and their rules for this is to determine is in an example instead of spelling out how you actually do it. So a horrible way to write the rules. Now, I kind of explained it before, but again, I'm having trouble remembering it. Okay, so what do I have? And we'll see what we have here. So I have 4 strength points of units with 2 friction points. And I have to roll the class for those. Let me get a die. Okay. And we use the same marker here. So I've got 2 friction points, which puts me here. And we don't really worry about the quality. It's just the friction points assessed to them. So I roll a die, and they're going to be class 1. And I'm going to mark that here for now. We'll figure out some better way of doing things later. Okay, now my regulars have 7 friction points, which puts them over here. And if I had different stacks, I would roll differently. And this is all very weird. So I get a 3, that's going to give me 2, a class 2 unit. Okay, and I don't worry about actually the number of strength points for some reason. Okay, the Cav has 8 friction points on it. That'll put it in that same category. But it has its own die roll. And that's a 3, that'll be a 2 quality. And then I have the field artillery, which is on the good table, the 1 to 5 table. Obviously I moved, so. And I am a 2 quality. Okay. So that means my quality, let's just add, see what this has. These 3 results are added together, 4 results, to give a total of 7. And divided by the number of results, 4 divided by 7 is about 2. Okay? We want it to get lower, but that's not a problem. So the total quality for Zach Taylor's force is a 2. Now let's take a look at the Mexicans. We're not on... that's gonna fall if I do that. Okay. We're not actually on the sheet as a leader, but we are there. We should be. Why is Arista not? Oh, no, we're on the sheet as a leader, but we don't have our own little holding box. And again, the holding boxes, I think, are just going to confuse me. So I have my special forces are at 0, my seasoned, and I roll a die for that. And that is going to be quality 1. My R's are at 10. These are regulars. Wow, the Mexicans can just dissolve for walking. That's going to be painful. So there are 2. That's not bad. The conscripts are at 15. No, they can't disintegrate from just checking their class. So they are quality 4. Hey, this is very obnoxious, but very random. The Cav is quality 6. So they're quality 3, or is 6 friction points. They're quality 3. And the heavy artillery is an 8. It's a lot of die rolls for one combat, isn't it? That's going to be quality 3. Now, according to the example, let me check the. Let me check to make sure you're not supposed to multiply this by the number of units in it. In the rules, it doesn't say that, but I've got the errata, and this is bugging me. It looks like they didn't change that in the reading. So 3, 6, 10, 12, 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 13 divided by 5 is a little over 2.5. 5 times 2.5 would be 10, 11.5. So we go up. Yeah, shit. Okay. This was in a bad position to write, but they go up to a 3. Hold on. Having a huge amount of problems here knocking things over. I haven't put my folding table back where I should, and knocked that over, and bumping everything. This is not, I don't know how to get my life in order. Anyway, so we have a 3 for Arista's force and a 2 for Zach Taylor. That means Taylor has a 1-point benefit. So he takes his 2 quality and drops it down to a 1. So I'll be up on this side of things. Okay. Now we determine the combat odds, and we had decided that they are 1 to 2. That would be a problem. I wouldn't be allowed to attack. But there are modifiers. The US is attacking, so I can bring that up 2 shifts to 3 to 1. Yay! Okay. And I'm allowed to do that. I don't think there's terrain here. I can't see any, but it's hard to see anywhere. I think the heavy artillery gives a modifier, doesn't it? I thought it did. It doesn't appear to there. Next, roll a die. The leader's combat rating. So Arista has a 1-point combat rating and a heavy artillery. So he's got 2 points in his favor. Taylor and Worth have 4 points in their favor. So that's going to be a 2-point advantage to me. And I think that's going to be a subtraction if I look at the table. So this looks all wrong, I think, but I'm not sure. No, maybe it's right. Okay, so 2 points in my favor is a +2, which means I'm more likely to get an exchange result, which I don't really think I want. I would rather get the retreat, so I kind of wish I was in a different place, but that's life. Wow, yeah, I don't like that. Although I do force him to attack, but he could bring more units in. Okay. So I guess we see what happens. +2 to the die roll. And I wish I hadn't brought my leader because it was a mistake. Oh, did I want to move him? Yeah, I I'm not really afraid. These guys can't attack me. They don't have a leader yet, and they'd have to kind of signal a leader over there. So I'm not really afraid of what the Mexicans can do to me. Okay, so back to the attack. I get a 3, plus 2 is 5. That means the defender gets a retreat plus 4 friction points. Now, where do I want to retreat the defender to? I'm going to retreat back here to Carmage so that I can combine forces as needed. And that means I take 3 friction points plus 4 friction points is 7 friction points to everything on Ariosto. Difficult here is I have to swap these numbers all out, kind of not really simultaneously. If I had a smaller eraser, I could easily maybe erase one, put one in. But this is a bigger deal. So I could try to remember the numbers, 17, 22, 13, 15. I think I can remember that. But the truth is, especially if you start getting, units, R units that are different friction point levels and everything, you might have a whole slew of pieces in a single space. There's no guarantee that, these leader boxes are capable of holding all the different types of units that you have. Because, if you have slightly different friction points between 2 units, you can't combine them. Now, I've made some, I'm going to make a house rule that you can combine to the worst if you so desire in order to, avoid greater penalties. But that's just really a matter of being able to bring your reinforcements on the map, because there aren't a lot of counters. When the reinforcements come, I may have some serious difficulty if I haven't gathered my forces. This is now our values that Arista has, and we don't have to make a disintegration roll after combat. Which feels a little weird. It feels to me like there should be, after combat, you should have to disintegrate. Let me make sure that I'm right about that, but I think I am. I forgot before I get to that is Cav. I have to compare Cav. So I had 3 strength points of Cav for the Mexicans and only 1 for the Americans. So they are unable to do a Cav pursuit. I'll be back. Here's where things get fucked up. Because look at the sequence of play. Mutual record keeping is where the morale changes. So technically, I don't get this 10 points right away, and I don't get the bonus for that. I'm going to mark that. One interesting thing about these counters, not this one, but most of the counters in the game have been pierced through the center, as if, yeah, and there are little holes in the map. I think whoever played this played it on with pins. I've never seen that before. I find that kind of intriguing. I bought it used and probably pretty cheap, and I can't complain at all about the fact that there's a little hole through each counter. But yeah, I have not seen somebody who played... it's a way of playing on the walls without paying for an expensive magnet board and all kind of crap like that. So I think that's the end of the US turn. This is going to be kind of annoying, remembering these changes of alignment, because the movement in combat and all the record keeping involved in it is kind of expensive, and I could see myself taking a break between each player turn and losing some of the context by which I have to understand what's changed hands, what hasn't. Something of a problem. Now, if the Mexicans take this back, that means the US has not taken it, and they will get their penalty. So that's an interesting factor. Yeah, I'm very disturbed by the fact that after combat there's no disintegration roll. I understand... Here's the thing. I understand why in a lot of ways, because the disintegration is fairly extreme. If you march and take attrition, etc., most of the losses were from attrition. Your unit could very well disintegrate due to that. And so you want to have that attritional roll at that point. But after a combat in which you retreat, it seems to me that you're in worse condition. A combat is a good situation under which formations will simply collapse and not be recoverable as such. kind of using my American Civil War knowledge here rather than Mexican War, but you know, formations did fall apart and have to be reorganized into other formations, etc. There were actual losses that came from combat. But again, if there were basically no losses from combat and no bad straggle effects from running away over, you know, as compared to moving normally, well, okay, but I don't buy that. But the problem is, okay, so I attack, I have to make a straggle, essentially a disintegration. If it were the way I'm envisioning it, I would attack, I'd have to make a disintegration check before my attack, which might foil my attack, and then I fall back, and there is no additional friction points or penalty for that. But then after the combat table, which has to be in here somewhere, I haven't rolled for the Mexican invasion of the US yet. There are attacker retreat results. It might be possible that the attacker's flung back and has to make another disintegration check. I'm not sure that's so terrible, you know. Exchange doesn't hurt your friction points. The only thing that hurts your friction points is retreat, and that's essentially a kind of movement, and it does not bother me too much that you'd have to actually take losses from that. There is no indication that I can find in the rules that that's the case. I also checked the errata for the word disintegration, and no, it doesn't say, yeah, we missed this. So I guess I'll keep looking, but hey, I did find it. This is not mentioned in the combat rules, okay? And we saw how the rules are kind of handled as, well, for example, you do this without spelling out what the actual rule is, so you kind of have to intuit it. This is like that. You will find, and this is how they're at 8 pages, right? You will find, and I don't know. You will find the unit disintegration class printed on the map. This chart is used during movement or retreat to check for unit disintegration. So, Ariosto, or whatever his name is, did retreat. So we have, and here's where we come to buckets of dice. All right, let's see what we got here. So this is going to be interesting. So his S's are at 7, and he has 4 of them. That means I roll 4 dice. There's no chance. Good enough. His R's are at 17, and he has 2 of them. 5s and 6s will eliminate a unit. Okay, so I lose 2 of those. That's everybody in that unit, so that formation goes away. Let me handle that. Really, really weird way to write rules. C's are at 22. I only have 1 of them. That's my heavy artillery. I don't know how that thing can even retreat, but 4, 5, and 6. That's the kind of shit that you end up leaving behind. Well, we did. So that'll be gone. I'll just remove that. And Cav, I've got 2 of them. Oh, shit. Okay, I was at the right. This is fine. Cav are at 13, and I think I have 3 of them. 13 means only 6s kill me. Okay, I lose 1 of my Cav. C was not heavy, that was conscripts. Whoops. C for cannon, you know? Okay. So I just lost, what, one of my Cav, I think? Let's look. Yeah. Heavy is at 15, which means I need a 6 to lose that. Which I don't. So I should have an S, a Cav, and a heavy left. And I'm here. These 2 units go back in the box, and we will be on... The The Mexican turn, now I have to worry, and it's not in the sheet, but I am hungry and I need a break. I have to worry about the Mexican invasion roll. What turn they're allowed to invade in. That's not spelled in the sequence of play for some reason. And yeah, this is not something I would want to pick up and say, hey, let's play this and try to explain the rules to someone from the rule book. That's something I'm used to being able to do with most kind of conventional war games. A little less once you start going to weirder stuff, like CDGs and stuff, because quite often they have something kind of packed away that's a little weird, especially having to do with interception type rules. Area movement type games just have that problem. But this one, I feel like I wouldn't want to play against someone. There it goes again, without playing it solo to make sure that I understand how things work. You know, the fact that they hide the fact that retreats cause a disintegration table check in the map section of all places. You know, they just did not, and I'm not surprised. I have not seen a 3W game with rules like these, but they are invariably bad rules. This one only has about a page of errata, which isn't too bad. But it doesn't cover everything. It's not like, yeah, remember you have to do this. There's none of that, you know. Wow. Especially amusing is I'm a guy who doesn't generally read the examples. I'll read the rule and skip the example, figuring the rule kind of tries to concisely and clearly explain what the hell they're trying to say. And sometimes it's erroneous. You know, it leaves some room for ambiguity or some questions in the reader's mind, and you have to look at the example to understand. Or sometimes it's kind of a new concept and they have to spell it out a little bit more. Here there just weren't any rules. All there is in some cases is the example, and you have to try to intuit the rule from the example, and that is just fucking odd. I should have done this before the beginning of the game. California is not defined in this game. These units have to be set up in California. I figure Las Vegas is probably not part of California, but I'm not sure. At some point or another, there has to be a line, and I'm putting it in stuff that's actually in California, and that's my limitation there. Texas, likewise, there's something that says, oh, this is in Texas and this isn't. There's, you know, no border. They drew borders for the U.S. states, but not for what comprises Texas. Now, this is kind of weird. I'm not gonna go into this. Texas is already free from Mexico at this point. And yeah, if I recall correctly, it's already part of the United States. Okay, I gotta look that shit up, man. I was gonna roll for the turn that the U.S. can be invaded. I believe, yeah, I mean, U.S. Army was moving into Texas. Yeah, Texas is part of the United States at this point, but this is the U.S. border, and then there's no Texas line anywhere. Now, obviously, it should be here, but all right. One die should have been done at the beginning of the game. Not sure what the Seaborn is for either. I guess you don't have to pay any cost if you travel that way. But again, it's not spelled out that I recall. So turn 4 is the earliest turn that we're going to be able to invade with the Mexicans. So if we manage to defeat Taylor or get a command over here, that's what we're going to worry about. But right now, we have to worry about the immediate problem. Express what part of that problem is here. So we're looking at Errata here, who's been weakened and has a lot of friction points on his units. If I just sit here, I get 8 back if I recall, if I understand correctly. Yeah, I'll be getting 8 friction points back. Unfortunately, this is a 5 morale point location, so the US may not be as interested in that. But it blocks the route to everything else until Polk decides he wants to do something more than just a border incursion and actually go for Mexico City itself. I don't think I want to move this force. Given that, I would say my Dapuna here, who's sitting with 6, 10, 12, 13 strength points, if I were to push them another 15 movement points, I'm going to get in trouble. If I don't do that, Taylor might be able to hit me. So let's think about what Taylor has. And these sheets are available for either player to investigate. I don't know if Taylor's willing to risk his cav and his regulars on a follow-up attack on these units, which may mean that I'm okay just sitting here at Monterey and defending that. On the other hand, see, if I move this 12 movement points here, this is the problem. I'll be up around 22 there, 27. I'll be losing units, and that's something I'd rather not do. So I kind of don't want to move either of these stacks. This one because it's recovering, and, you know, to some extent, it's going to have a huge pain falling back. There's kind of this, geez, what do I do with my army in this case? What I could do is I could leave. Yeah, let's see how many strength points we have in each of these, because I could use La Vega to funnel troops up, or I could leave everything under La Vega. He's as good as defending as anyone else. He's just not good at moving units. And not that I have problems moving units, right? This is all within Mexican territory, so I actually don't need a leader for this. And the leaders don't help. I could move and try to move some of these forces. So what's down in Mexico City? I've got 15 strength points there. And here at San Luis Potosi, I've only got 4. All right. Well, there's no reason I need a leader to run back and funnel them either. What the hell? Okay. Sure. So let's move my San Luis Potosi forces up. And they are going to accumulate 14 points moving into here. I'm going to try to conglomerate my forces, but I don't know how much I really want to do this. And every time you move, it's expensive, damn it. I mean, do I just want to give up this territory? Jesus Christ. All right, let me look at my reinforcements, because the rate at which I'm getting forces in Mexico may affect what I'm taking to. Getting more units in. Now, it's quite a few turns before Polk comes in, is willing to engage. I think I'm going to move up and try to get a force that can handle Taylor. A big enough force that I can put a threat on the U.S. right away. So yeah, I'm going to move the San Luis Potosi units up, and they each accumulate 14 points and then have to make rolls. I'll tell you what happens in a moment. I don't want to move my conscripts that far, so I'm leaving them there. I lost a cav moving in there, and now I'll take a look at these guys and see if I want to inch them forward as well. This move is expensive, and you know, that 12 points means I'm going to be getting at least some chance of losing units. And then, you know, if you're making the 16 move, you know, we're looking at a 5 or a 6, but that's 16, you know, added to the regulars, that puts me to the 26. remember the 2 doesn't hit, but I've got a 2/3 chance of losing each unit I have. Wow, you really don't want to fucking move in this game. Unfortunately, I can't defend the meaty stuff easily without crossing that barrier. I moved some units, but which leads me to wonder if I want to move this cav at all. Remember, cav has a minimum of 6, so that would be 16. That doesn't look wise. But I could move my S's and my field artillery, which are both in good shape. That puts them on the 10 table and doesn't hurt them at all. So I'm going to move those good units up, and I think this may be all. Very easy to remember who's at their minimum and who's not at this point. So, you know, these 2 units that just moved, well, they have accumulated some points moving out of Mexico City. They're out of there. They're in San Luis. But now I've got, that's a 10 there. Doesn't look like one. I gotta fix that. I mean, and I only have a few units that can recover, which is Arista's units. They'll all be recovering 8. So, okay, these S's get everything back. I think everybody else is at 7, so they'll just hit their minimum. But it's kind of hard to remember what your minimums are when you've just got like this long sheet of stuff. So I know the cav minimum's 6 right now, and I know I gained 7, so that makes sense. And I assume, you know, the heavy minimum is 15, so I'll gain the 8 back, and or I'll gain the 7, 8 back. I'm assuming it's 8 because I added 7 everywhere. I can keep looking that up, but man, that's a cross-reference on, you know, every row on this chart, basically, until and unless you get to memorize those, which might be difficult. Movement up here, yeah, I can shift around back here, but moving to defend the border looks impossible. From El Paso, you know, that's just a regular, it'll dissolve if I move it. Doesn't seem worth it. So there's really not a lot I can move. Painful level of movement means there's a lot of stuff you got to juggle mentally in this game, like this, like which units haven't moved, which units have moved, etc. And there really isn't a lot to represent it. That painful level of movement means that, geez, not the mental problem, but the actual friction point costs. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to hit Taylor at all while he's weak. You know, there's forces here that I've got to recover if I want to move forward. There's forces here. As a matter of fact, I may want to just move Puna's force forward and leave La Vega behind with the new units, just so that I start getting a chance to recover some of my forces. I think I'll do that. I wasn't going to do that. But the problem there is, of course, the Puna has not that many units that I want to move, so maybe I'll move La Vega. Because I can't afford to move my conscripts. I just can't fucking afford to move them. They're too weak. So let me think about this. Now, I like the idea of Depuna being here because that'll give me an extra die roll modification in combat, although I'm not convinced, you know, the results were really in my favor for having, like, I feel like the US didn't want the die roll modifier. That would have put exchanges, which are not as good as the retreat. I wouldn't necessarily get the area, and I would have to spend my smaller force pool for one-to-one exchanges, so I'd probably only trade 1 unit. The only advantage of it is the Mexicans would have to attack, and that might not be good for them. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to shift some of De Ampuna's forces into there. The effect of that is really I brought whatever I had in terms of S's into here. That only gets me 8 strength points. That doesn't sound very useful. tailor's bigger than 8. So I want to get more in there. So what else could I send? I could send one strength point's not going to do much of regulars. I could send 2 more cav. That's not bad. Oh, I definitely can't send these regulars. They have 24 friction points, but I've got these that only have 10. But if I send 2 cav, that puts me up to 10 strength points, and then it's hard for Taylor to attack. So why don't I send those? And I actually get to roll after I send. So let's look for the cav 21. Let's send that over. And that'll be moving 12, so that's at 18, which means 5s and 6s kill a strength point. All right, we only got 1 in. Need a 1-to-1 on Taylor. Now Taylor might lose people coming over, but not on a 3. That's pretty unlikely. So I got to get 1 more point over there. I got a point of heavy artillery, which would be only on the 20 table. So we'll try sleazing that in there. Again, 5 or a 6 kills it. We'd really rather not lose a heavy artillery. They're good stuff, but yay, we make it. The recovery points on the units that were remaining here that are now under Depuna. So we've got units with, you know, their base level. We also have, though, doubling up with a lot of these counters because they have different friction point totals. I think that gives us something 7, 8, 9. Shit, that gives us 10. Is 10 good? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this really bugs me because I shouldn't be counting factors in this way to try to get, you know, to the odds chart or whatever. The game says everything's open to be viewed, but I find that a little disturbing. My feeling is, yeah, I might be able to tell a little bit of what somebody has, but I probably can't tell everything. Now we go to Matamoros, which is captured. It is lost from Mexico. So Mexico loses 10 points of morale. And it is gained by the U.S., and the U.S. gained a 10-point city, so we have no penalties on us. Which means something good has happened, I guess. That's going to push us to the second turn. I am going to load this up because I think it kind of shows a lot of the mechanisms of the play without, and I'm sure I took a fair amount of time, probably not the hour that I used to like, but there's no way for me to tell how long my videos are anymore. They don't give me that information on this new camera. All it does is sucks the battery dry fast.